back to our 5D relationships. They don't involve drama. They don't involve unfinished business. They don't involve inaction. They don't involve waiting around. They don't involve separation. They don't involve what adaptive children who are emotionally immature, whether with unresolved childhood trauma of their awareness or not, or insecure attachment. Person who's in 5D is, I know where I have insecurity emotionally, and I choose to be a grown-up and to talk about it. The people who need support, they know how to find it because there's plenty of it on there. Good ones. There's also some that are not so great, but, the good ones are trying to distribute the word, your mental health diagnosis is not fixed. And they're trying to tell therapists, stop saying that it's fixed. It's not fixed. There's a process. It's called you going to therapy and then learning about the codependent types so that you can disengage from those relationships. Boundaries, they're not fixed in this, they're not in a way of harsh and unforgiving is the adaptive child modality because they don't have a secure attachment within their own body yet. And that means they don't feel safe. They're not in their ventral vagal state. They're not using their left and right. When emotions arise, the emotions are overwhelming. But with a good therapist, that's where there's, okay, every time you're triggered, here's how you want to try to share with other people. I'm triggered because I'm having a flashback. I have a way that I need to work with. It's not by making demands. I've had people that have done things like that, and I'm like, I can't change the way I'm talking, and the way you're presenting it is not going to go down well. We're just not going to talk because your trigger is your emotional trigger. That I may be made aware of it, you're making me aware of it. I can't harness your nervous system for you. And I won't be able to change. So, for example, what I'm using is all of us have a way that we exchange conversation, and I do my hands, but I also make sounds with my voice, and I'm not controlling it. It's part of my character, my personality, call it what you will. So if somebody says, when you do this, I get triggered and you need to stop doing this. And so I'm going to demand that you converse with me in a tone and a manner and okay, yeah, you know what? That's way too hard. I'm going to say we don't need to talk at all because the emotional trigger is yours. You're not taking ownership. You're bringing it to another human being who, by the way, has a pattern and a manner of speaking. So adaptive children can spend a whole buttload of time. That's not love right there. Right there, that's a immature demand. And as Terry Real points out, your partner don't fix you and you don't fix another partner. And that's also where codependent people, let me change you. Let me fix you. Let me take care of you. No emotional maturity there. So 5D relationships, it's you do you with your thoughts and emotions, and we communicate. I do me with my thoughts and emotions. Don't treat me like a child, and I won't treat you like a child, meaning don't change me. Again, it's very clear. So in fact, the conversation that happened, and this is a long, long time ago, but anytime I've had an adaptive child, emotionally speaking, make certain demands, I'm a direct communicator. I have no emotional insecurity. I don't have a shame button. So when you're telling me something, I hear what you say, and this is where I'm going to be like, yeah, I won't be able to do that. So I think we won't talk anymore. And actually right now, I think I should go. When I've been asked things like, you can't be friends with that person because I don't like them. Yes, this is not going to happen. So either we don't have to be friends at all, or it's not going to happen. You choose. But there's my response to you. I'm not going to be living according to rules that have nothing to do with me as an individual. Differentiated self is what 5D is. And it's not feeling bad. Here's where adaptive children, this is very cute when they get soft. Because some people, they have a very specific way. And they're like, don't you think you're being defensive sometimes is the word that is used, or strict, or anyways, the ability to stay within your ventral vagal node is not something that an adaptive child, because emotionally speaking, as long as you don't take full ownership of your body and of your mind and of saying, yeah, you know what, this is who I am. But to be able to do it, it's not because you're superior or inferior. This is where healthy self-worth is. I'm not superior or inferior. My name is Maria. I know how I talk. I know how I think. I know how I feel. And here's who I am. And if you don't like it, it's cool. You don't have to like it. I don't have to be around you. And you don't have to be around me. That's why love. It is not as hard as the people who like to do drama. No, they don't like to do drama. That's the part that I'm trying to get to. They have unfinished business and they don't have the good information. So on that note, I gave you some examples, and this is the part where an adult person likes relationships like this. When I meet adult people, they don't be like, oh, don't you think? They're like, wow, you're awesome. High five, high five. So expanding consciousness people actually know about healthy boundaries, which is not about inflexibility and insulting. You don't shame, you don't blame, you don't do the whole fault, and you don't do revenge, you don't do contempt. So I wanted to share this particular spot of Terry Real. He talks about contempt. Contempt, he says, is the root of shame. You should look up Terry Real. He's awesome for any couples that want good therapy. He's great. Then there's Patrick Tiahan for childhood trauma, if you want a community of people who are healing and healed, and he talks about how to not project your unresolved and or your flashbacks and the trauma that comes up onto another. Also, don't fall for the little magic wands, but know that childhood trauma therapists need to know childhood trauma. Not all of them, in fact, do. Also, codependent type therapy is important for anybody who has had a household where you have childhood trauma. And he says one way to notice that is if you would not wish upon anybody else your childhood. I'll also share some people don't actually acknowledge that they have trauma. And this is why it's also important to note, if you grow more loving every day, and if you grow relationships, and if you want to be around people, that is meaning you are actually creating intimacy within yourself and with others. If you don't want to be around people, you have not yet created intimacy within yourself. Our mammalian heritage is to be around each other, not alone. So on that note, your body, the heaven in the body that Sadhguru talks about, it's a person with integration of the brain. Ventral vagal state is engaged, and that's where without any yoga, I only did yoga personally with Sadhguru because I promised for my Shambhavi Kriya course, and I love every moment of when I do it, but it's a portfolio of ventral vagal nervous system exercises, yoga. It also has you sit in silence, so you get to start working with your prefrontal cortex, which is very important because if somebody has had childhood trauma and these attachment wounds, there's a way that the traumatized brain is. It's a shrunken hippocampus, shrunken prefrontal cortex, and an enlarged amygdala. The enlarged amygdala, remember, we learned from another brain science lady, I forget her name, neuroscience lady, how when the frontal lobes are squished down, the neuroplasticity is not working in favor of your wise adult, which is the prefrontal cortex. That's where your wise adult is. Now it's working with your amygdala. And so people who have a safety, trauma, behavior response, first they need to grow comfortable within themselves. Then from silence comes the ability to use your wise adult, but you choose when you're in relationships, which is why if you value long-term relationships, you will work on becoming your adult self. So people who don't want to be around people, they could, for all we know, continue to do a lot of things with their unresolved trauma, unfortunately, and attachment insecurities, drugs, alcohol, sex, food, all the compulsive activities of the shame cycle, inner critic, outer critic, and then after the activities, denying the emotions that arise, gambling, procrastination, the movies. The movies make it look normal, while what is normal is us having fun in moderation, equanimity, the land of enlightenment, and 5D. Contempt is the root of shame, and contempt is the root of grandiosity. Terry Real. So grandiosity means not healthy self-worth. And he also shares how it's emotionally and psychologically and physically potentially can instigate a type of violence, and especially the emotionally part. He says emotionally violent by definition, and it is shaming a person and doing violence to them. So let us just remember not to be in contempt. This is why I wanted to use what he shares, and a 5D person doesn't. We have love even when people have contempt. We are not going to have contempt. We know something's up, and good therapies out there. Thank goodness for them. So if you need any people, let me know. I have plenty of lists. And in the meantime, tune in for more. We'll be back again soon. Have a